Hey everyone, welcome to the Tom's Hardware Podcast for March 7th, 2023. As always, I'm Tom's Hardware Editor-in-Chief, Avram Pelch, joined by our Associate Editor, Les Pounder, Raspberry Pi expert, Ash Hill, and amazing guests from Pimoroni. We have Jon, we have Paul, we have Phil, and we have all stars from an all-star maker company. We always love to have you guys on.
Triple trouble.
Yeah. I think I speak for everybody in the audience when I say Pimoroni is like our toy store. We like what I every time people are like, oh, what should they get? What should I get you? I don't know what to get you. What should I get you for the holidays or something? I'm like, Pimoroni gift card. Not something else, like Pimoroni gift card, because then I go and I like, because it's just such a toy thing, it's getting.
And even if they have something cool out, they're probably gonna have something cooler out next week. So
yeah, exactly.
You want to be ready.
I get inky frames, the unicorn, the galactic unicorn, fantastic. So, what is the latest? What are your? I feel like I'm talking to Q from James Bond. What is the latest?
Well, I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch. I can just like it's amazing. 6 people.
Not universal challenge.
Yeah.
The latest is the Cosmic Unicorn and the Inky Frame 7, which launches tomorrow. So these are like the biggest versions of both LED matrices and EInk displays that we've done yet. Again, largely in part because the RP2040 is such a powerful chip, we can get it to do all sorts of exciting things, and Phil's put loads of work into improving our graphics library. So we now have a great kind of graphics library. We were chatting with you, Avram, just before we started, that lets you do all sorts of nice stuff, but it works across all our products now. So whether it's EInk or RGB matrices or LCD displays, you use the same code. It makes it kind of frictionless to jump between them. So yeah, very excited with those.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a big part of it, is just all of the different awesome libraries that you've used to expand the capability of MicroPython. It's like, amazing. Everyone should just download their MicroPython build from Pimoroni, no matter what.
You say our MicroPython build, we have about 15, all because of the different compromises on flash storage space and what have you. But yeah, basically we try to do a build for each of our kind of flagship products that has the kind of tools you might want for that particular product. And yeah, Phil's showing the Inky Frame 7 updating here, which does take a while.
I was waiting for it. It's on a 20-minute timer, so
okay.
Waiting for it to start going. We haven't just been releasing new products, right? We've been releasing new software that makes existing products cooler. So the big thing with Pico DV recently is the SDK was updated to 1.5.0 with some very rudimentary Bluetooth support. I say rudimentary, it's fairly complete, but it's still beta. It still hasn't come to MicroPython. But that means we can pick up Bluetooth already and start doing things with it. So with Galactic and Cosmic, which you can see behind me here, we have done like a really scrappy Bluetooth speaker fast Fourier transform. What do you call them? Graphic equalizer.
Visualizer type thing. Yeah.
So you can play music to it, listen to the music out of the tinny little speaker, and get a little graphic equalizer. I should have set one up for a demo, but it would have been unreliable. Yeah. And for Inky, we have added dithering, so you can get a lot more colors than the 7 that it actually supports, with reasonable fidelity. I mean, don't look too closely at it, obviously.
It works a lot better on photographs and things than it does
yes.
That kind of artwork. But it's pretty amazing what you can get out of that panel.
Really is.
The stuff that Phil's been working on, especially with Pico graphics, these displays are all so different. It's like the way that an RGB matrix behaves compared to a 7-color EInk versus LED matrices. They're so different that we're kind of having to gloss over that by clever tricks like implementing dithering on the EInk displays, that as the user, you don't have to care about it really. You can if you want to, but we try to make it as easy as possible to get going, basically.
There was somebody who cared about dithering so much that they basically held Phil GitHub issue point until he included an option to turn it off, which was quite magic. They were really insistent for good reasons, weren't they?
Yeah, I think it's nice to be able to prepare your own. You can ignore all the JPEG encoding. You can ignore everything. You can create a bin file that just already encodes a frame buffer for Inky with whatever dithering you like, because people will prefer. We use ordered dither, which is fast, but it is ugly. And it's not super great.
He literally said, I like the dithering that you did on the Raspberry Pi. I'd like to have it on the Inky frame, please. Can you turn off the one you've got built in? Yeah. So you did it.
And also provided a conversion utility as well, I think.
Cool.
Well, Pico Graphics, I've been using it for about 24 hours now. So last night it was messing
you're
around.
You're an expert then, Les.
Well, allegedly. So I've got it working with Cosmic Unicorns to do the logo change. Those are just 2 JPEGs at 32 pixels square that I'm just changing between in Python. Absolute doddle. And I managed to apply the same sort of code to make this, which is upside down. There we go. I'll get it right one day. It's only took 121 shows. We'll get there. Pretty much the same principle for this. And this is an EInk display. And I got this at lunchtime today. Just reused a bit of code. And I got these 3 gorgeous creatures here.
So is the dithering different on the 7 than the 5, 7, and the 4?
No, it's the same. They're
uses
effectively the same panel.
today.
So the main difference on the 7 is it has so many pixels, there isn't enough RAM on the RP2040 to hold the frame buffer. So the one difference on that version of products is we actually have a separate PSRAM chip on the board. So then again, Phil has extended Pico graphics. So now instead of using the local memory of RP2040, it can point at an external PSRAM chip.
I have to defer to Andrew Capon for doing that.
You know, it works really well, and it was essential for the EInk displays. But actually, we found it so fast, we're using it for some slightly crazy future upcoming things like cameras and bigger displays again. So, yeah, pretty interesting.
It's so good.
Nice.
Yep.
Put it on.
So the camera's coming finally, which is good.
It is, but not the camera you were expecting.
No,
a different camera.
This one's better. This time there will be no fires.
We have a new stick product coming. So like the plasma stick, we have a camera stick coming that has a PIR sensor. It has a light sensor so that you can adjust the exposure, and it will read from the first version will be 2 megapixel camera sensor into the PSRAM so that it can store multiple shots in there. And then if I remember correctly, it can then dump them onto an SD card as well, I think, on the board. Might be misspeaking there, but I think it might. But yeah, that's like a really small wireless camera module that you can work with from MicroPython again, because it's all Pico powered, basically.
Yeah. That's cool. Any idea when it's coming out?
I think we're just building the first prototype. Like we've got some pretty good looking software, but that's based on some really thrown together stuff from bits and pieces. The first test PCB, I think, is on the way shortly, so it'll be a few weeks yet.
Radio.
Somebody had a question in the comments that I wanted to bring up, because I think most people know that Pimoroni is very Pi driven, but somebody asked, it was Larry Bank a little bit earlier, if you want to scroll up and put it up, Abram. It says, any chance for an ESP32S3 version of any of those products? And I wanted to know just what you guys think about the idea of using other boards like that in some of these products.
Like, we're not against any other boards, but we are against having to support them in our software stack.
Pico SDK is so
just
good.
Not realistic for us to do. So we do understand that other people have their favorite board or they want variety, and we totally agree choice is good, but I think it's not going to come from us purely because the breadth of what we do is so wide. We simply can't. We haven't got the bandwidth to do it again on another platform, and we have tried before, and we've always regretted it. So
yeah. I think like the last few years, we've found ourselves going too wide on products, and we've spent the last year or even 2 years reining that back in. So we have fewer products with better software stack, better experience, and that supporting another platform entirely would make that difficult to do. We'd rather make it easier to do wonderful stuff with something we can hone and get better at, and that we know, pretty inside and out now.
Is Phil's chair a product?
It is being driven by an old version of, I can't even remember the name of the product now.
It's not
Is it
plasma, is
Note
it?
or Plasma?
Yeah, Plasma, that's the one.
Oh,
Old version
Plasma,
of
yeah.
Plasma just connected to a big battery and some LEDs stuffed around the edge of it. It's got like a little gap between the mesh and the frame of the chair, so I just found you could stuff LEDs around it without any worry whatsoever. It's great.
Now that's what you need to hook up to music to have it like pulse to the beat.
Oh yeah,
that is really cool. Where did you guys get the idea, which I think is such a brilliant idea, to create so many different kinds of badges lately, or things that could be used as badges? Because there's the Badger, you could use the Inky frame as a badge. There's the Tufty, a lot of sort of wearable screens. Was that just kind of a coincidence, or did
This
you
one
get the
too,
idea?
because it's you got the badge holder on the Galactic Unicorn too.
Yeah.
That's really a
Yeah,
joke.
true, yeah.
The fact we put the lanyard clip on the Galactic and the
Someone
Cosmic
will
Unicorn
wear it.
was just a joke, but like someone's going to do it. That's fine. I mean, all of this stemmed from the original Badger. And the original Badger was I guess it was a mixture of things. We liked EInk, but it was too expensive. We were toying around with ideas for changing our business model a bit and just doing something a bit different to what we'd done before. So we kind of completely went against our normal grain with the Badger. We created it as kind of a bit of a one-off thing. We didn't put any margin in for resellers to keep the price down. We got a great deal on the screens because we committed to a lot of them. And in some respects, we just kind of wanted to play with the idea because we liked the idea. But in others, we wanted to see, as a business, how would this work for us? A completely different model to our usual approach. And that's why Badger appeared at £12.50, I think, including VAT. So that's like $12 or something on launch, which with our old setup would not have been remotely sustainable. Like we couldn't have hit that price point at all, not even close. We've kind of stepped back a little bit from how extreme we went on that experiment, and I think it's $16.50 now, which still I think is really good value for the product. But it was very much kind of an experiment because we're hackers at heart, and as much as hacking technology, we quite like hacking the business and hacking our approach and kind of just trying out new things really to see what Pimoroni looks like in the future.
I think it was just
sorry, go on.
It was too much of a challenge, wasn't it? They just came to us and said, "Look, we've got these screens. We want someone to take care of all of them," and we took it as a challenge. And the other half of that was making the software awesome on it, putting the little Badger OS on it, which is not really an OS as such, but it's just so friendly.
Someone's come along and outdone us with the visual style on that, actually.
Well, the Mac OS style on the classic.
Yeah,
Mac.
it's so nice.
But I think the thing with Badger OS is it's kind of a smoke and mirrors thing. Really, it's just 6 scripts on the device, but just by making it look a bit like an OS and putting like the little battery charge indicator and all that kind of thing, suddenly it feels a bit more like a thing rather than just some hacking toy that you have to upload your Python file onto.
It felt very much
I think we were
like
really
if you build it, they will come, and they came, and people started doing their remixes and saying, "I could use this for this," and being inspired.
Definitely. Yeah, and then really it was just off the back of that. I mean, we had to do a W version when the Pico W came out, just to sit alongside its kind of original sibling. And the Tufty, EInk is limited, so we thought, well, let's try kind of doing an LCD format as well, because it gives people the opportunity to do like full screen animation, full color. You could play Doom on it. It's kind of cool. Yeah. Is a Tufty 2040W on the horizon? Oh God, I can't even remember. Probably. Is it?
Pico's futzing around with it at the moment. The thing is, the W is wider than the PCB if you want to fit it in properly at all. So we have to massage the format a little. I think 99% it will happen. Not too long away. We need to put Nico in a corner with some kind of IKEA cookies, and he'll do a good job.
I mean, arguably, the Tufty makes less sense as a badge because obviously the power requirements of running an LCD, as well as say even the Wi-Fi. I mean, it kind of blows the budget. So you're probably you're in Apple Watch territory where the battery lasts like a day and a half rather than 6 months, which is what we were aiming for with Badger. Right? We wanted to give people something they could code and actually do something for 6 months. And interestingly, we've sold a lot of them in like moderate quantities, 200-300 to universities and things like that, where they can use them as a training tool. because they were so cheap. It made sense.
Yeah.
But we've also had interest from other groups, which you may hear more about in the future. We can't really talk about it yet. Who want to use them out in the field for charity work, especially in developing countries, so that they can become devices where they can log data, but they run for a very long time. They're cheap, so it doesn't really matter if one gets lost in a field or whatever. It's there's some really interesting possibilities there that we're looking at. So you might hear more about that over the next few months.
Have you guys looked into whether you can do that form factor with color EInk?
Yes, but it would cost a lot.
Yeah.
Tell them about the screen, John. Tell them about it.
Which bit about the screen? The color one?
Yeah,
I mean, the color screen costs like 10 times the price of that black and white screen. So you can see what effect it would have. And the screen's the most expensive item on the BOM. So like immediately you're talking like a £50 badge instead of a £15 badge, minimum. So I'm going to say probably not. I think badge is fun because it's cheap.
This is the one where it's got the 4,096 colours, right?
It is, yeah.
The problem,
I don't quite know why they claim that. Is that it must be based on ink mixing still, though, right?
It's basically this is why the seven colour looks great. It looks like a pointillist picture. It looks impressionistic. You go to the 4,096 and it becomes essentially a sort of TFT again in the way the technology works. So it's less interesting in a way. It's less magical, and it costs a hell of a lot more. So, yeah. We just, I don't think I'd buy it myself at the price point we'd have to put it out at, even though it's kind of cutting edge for EInk. And I think I've seen some phones that use these kind of screens, and there's very little interest because suddenly it's gone over the hump and it's gone back into kind of territory instead of this is different territory.
Yeah.
Just looks like an LCD from the 80s.
Yeah. Who wants that?
We had those in the 80s. Right.
Yeah. I have to say that the actual drawing process with the Inky frame is kind of fun because, or at least like my kids really enjoy it because they'll have me put a picture on the Inky frame and then they'll watch it draw, sort of like watching your Polaroid develop back in the day. And so it's actually kind of the slowness of it is actually kind of amusing.
Well, there's a whole kind of slow movement around a lot of different things, isn't there? And sometimes it's not about 60 frames a second and everything exploding at once. It can be nice to have the anticipation and the build up towards the end result, and just let the world pass you by at the pace it's ready to go.
I have my lovely, incredibly wrong clock.
Oh no!
I've got scripts carving up movie files into kind of 15-second individual frames, which I'll then put on an SD card, and I will make it play slow movies. So we'll play out a movie over a whole day or a week, and that's the one that I want to go. This project's been done like many times before, but this is the ideal thing. This screen is somewhere just between 16:9 to 16:10, which is the sweet spot. The other two screens, I think, are the wrong ratio entirely. The 7.3-inch one is the magic sweet spot. And also, mad props to Sandy there, who we were saying in the factory, can we get a shipping image to ship this out? And Sandy went, yeah, sure. How about you use this one? And it's literally a picture of shipping containers on a cargo ship. But it's also magical.
You reminded me, Phil, of a project I saw once where somebody had just a black and white e-ink display. They wanted to make a Valentine's Day present or a wedding present for their wife, and they had a video of their wedding, and the whole thing it was playing their entire wedding video slowly over time. So it was just one frame at a time of their wedding. So every time she could walk by her digital picture frame, there'd be just another snapshot of where they were in the video. And I thought that was kind of cool.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
But watching a movie would take too long.
Yeah.
If it's a movie you really like, you can just kind of, check in on it periodically. Like, oh, it's that scene, huh?
Put some subtitles on it so you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Could we pick up a question from the comments, guys? There was one about why there's no Lipo charging on the boards that we're talking about.
There you go. That was Larry asking. So why is there no Lipo charging on these boards?
I'm glad you asked that, Les. It's nice to have such an out-of-the-blue question that was unexpected. I mean, it was completely intentional, and the reason is that we just want people to be able to use pretty much any power supply they have. So while we love using Lipo batteries, especially the soft pack ones, are pretty dicey. You wouldn't want to give them to kids or use them in a classroom environment for sure. So we wanted to make sure the boards would work with really boring power options like AA batteries and what have you, which is why we didn't include the Lipo charge circuit. But we do have a product called Lipo Amigo Pro, which is actually an inline Lipo charge circuit. So you can stick that into the boards and then stick your battery into that and then charge off that, and it'll do exactly effectively what Larry's asking for there in the question.
Yeah, and it can also be a standalone charger if you want.
Yes.
So you can have,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think it's the only
laptop.
inline Lipo charger I've seen. I don't know why no one else seems to have done it, but it seemed like such an obvious thing to want.
Yeah, I think one of the power boosts does the same thing.
Maybe
I forget which one.
Yeah, the only ones I've seen, not an Adafruit product or one of yours, is it DW01 chips that they use in the cheap Poundland power banks?
Yeah.
They'll charge and dish out a charge as well. But I've not seen a proper product apart from Lipo Amigo Pro, which I've got in the box down there, which I'm still trying to sort through because I've moved offices.
Oh my word.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
Someone asked about shipping batteries outside of UK.
Yes, by road at least.
Yeah, but there's no roads to the USA, right?
No.
No. Here's
yet.
a dirty little secret. If you see a KittenBot battery that looks about the same size, it's the same thing.
Oh, you mean if you could source that locally, Paul?
Yeah, because I think
we got them from KittenBot. We got them. We saw that they'd done these great little batteries, and we got in touch and said, "Hey, can we have one with our own branding on, please?" And they said, "Yeah, sure. Buy lots of them, and we'll do whatever you want."
Well, that's focusing really well.
But it's a useful size, and it has a bit of a hard plastic case around it, so it feels better for kids and things. You know, they have to really chew it to get some flavour.
Release the spice.
Yeah.
Especially for like wearable projects where things are just getting bashed around all the time, you kind of want that bit of protection on the battery. Oh, that's another product we've got coming at some point, which is quite interesting. It'll be some battery packs for Raspberry Pi themselves. So they'll kind of clip onto the Pi and add power. And the only reason that came to mind is because that's got like a hard shell around it to protect the lipos.
So is that for all models of Pi or just specific ones? Or
it'll launch for the Zero variants, but there is a version in the works for the bigger one as well.
We got some custom injection molding.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
So that range is going to be called Pirate Power. Say again?
The batteries would be fun to play with. I've seen them before, and I'm in the United States, so I haven't been able to get a hold of one of them. But it ties in really well with the badge ecosystem because it would be so easy just to like snap that in and go. Put some Velcro on it.
Yeah, the funny thing is that
you can rock it like with a lanyard.
That tiny little galleon battery, you can drive an entire Cosmic Unicorn off it. I mean, not for ages, but for long enough.
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Long enough to say, "Hey, I did it."
Yeah.
That's really cool because I mean, there really haven't been a lot of good battery options. I feel for the Raspberry Pi. I mean, you could use a USB battery, but those are made for phones, and they're not like it's hard to get one that fits on a robot or whatever that has the adequate number of milliamps. And so like that's something that's really been lacking. And like I've looked into this before, like getting all kinds of like things to upscale from 3.7 volts or downscale or use 18650 batteries or things like that. So having like a really good like solid made for the Pi battery option would be fantastic.
So these effectively will screw onto the base of the Pi, and it's a plastic case. It has a USB port that goes in. It also gives you soft power on/off control as well,
nice.
and also LED indicators to let you know what state it's in. And you basically mount it on the bottom of the Pi, and it uses pogo pins to contact with the GPIO from underneath. So you've still got the GPIO available on top. You've still got all the ports available. It just adds a base underneath the Pi, basically.
Yeah.
And once it's installed, you can just leave it on that Pi, or you can unscrew it and move it to another one if you want to. So it's a very convenient kind of format to work with the Pi on a desk or in a project.
Yeah. Pirate Power Pi pants.
Is that going to be something that can't ship internationally because it has a battery in it, or is it okay if it's a finished product like that?
I think that's the key. I think because, as I understand it, I think because the battery is installed in the product for shipping, it's okay. So
That's
it
not
should be
fair.
available overseas.
It doesn't make sense, but those are the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. It essentially becomes a bit like a mobile phone, and so because it's a complete thing, now it's somewhat acceptable within given rules.
The real irony is that if you're selling a product with the battery installed inside, you're allowed to ship a spare battery with it.
That makes me mad.
Go figure.
So just one battery, so you can't just get a mobile phone and put 50 batteries in the box with it.
Just one spare, I believe, is the rule.
You know, the whole point of
Wild.
like a lot of what you guys do is you like to open up your projects to people who don't have as much tech experience and people who do have a lot of tech experience. So like, here's my battery. This is what I use for Picos. It's like wrapped up in tape, and you can see a little bit of soldering we had to do on those wires. And I have another Pico that it connects to that can plug into. So it's easy to connect and disconnect, but it took a lot of know-how just to get to that point. And being able to just order a battery, plug it in, and you know it's the same brand as your hardware. It just feels good to have everything be in the same family and be ready to go.
Yeah. Some days, you know, we want to be makers, we want to fix things, but some days we just want to get on with doing the fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plug it in
We're
and
talking
go.
of fun stuff. So this is about the boards in general. Mrs. P mentioned this yesterday when she saw the boards coming through the letterbox. She says the printing on the back is rather nice, the silk screen. And, you know, I have to agree. Let's get it all on the camera. It's stunning. So particularly my favourite is Space Whale.
Ooh,
Yeah. Space Narwhale.
beautiful.
It's Space Whale Unicorn. There you go.
Yeah. It's got a big hoard that's in gold. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
I want to ask, how do you design the silk screens? What's the process? Is it, you know, what software do you use? Do you just pick a subject and go, I'm going to do that? Or is there something more involved? Does it involve beer? I don't know.
So a lot of it is just kind of thinking of these crazy names and then just following that. Off the back of that, a lot of this is kind of vintage illustrations from books. There's a lot of that about, and then mashing that up. So I'm really kind of a collage artist, graphic designer, rather
So
than
it
an
is you who's
illustrator.
doing the art.
Most
It's
of it,
always
yeah,
always
these
Paul,
days.
yeah.
Nice.
There's things like the bearables that were done by Lydia, our graphic designer, and you can tell because they're very distinct from how I do things, and
I
they're
love
beautiful. But this kind of stuff, I'm just finding stuff that I like and mashing it up in ways that kind of look good, send a message, and just make it feel like a beautiful board.
I mean, even just the font that you're using to label, like here it has like speaker and like where you hook up the battery, QWSD. I mean, the font looks good. It's all the little details, and then you've got like the gold coloring on some of the letters, and then the unicorn here has a gold horn. I can't get close enough because the cable's plugged in, but it's little details make it just look slick.
Yeah. Safe from AI for at least another year.
So
That's my favourite.
Traditional PCB engineering would use the tools in the PCB layout software to do the artwork. So those tools tend to have like some crummy vector fonts. They tend to have line drawing and maybe cross-hatching and circles and things like that, which is why most PCBs look the same. They all tend to have that same font on them, and everything's a white box. But what Paul does is he actually produces artwork in real illustration software, and then we export that as like a raster image, and then we import that into the CAD software to make it a layer in the PCB design. And that's caused us no end of grief at times. Like the end result is excellent, but it means we've sent PCB houses, you know, files with hundreds of thousands of what they call apertures in the definition, because every single line, you know, if it's 600 dots per inch, you can imagine there's like 600 lines of data for every image, for every inch of PCB. And then across, you've got basically line segments. So it's a bit hard to describe, but basically the whole image is just made up of very thin horizontal lines that are all stacked on top of each other. And I think we sent it to one PCB house. They had to upgrade their software to handle it. Like they had to buy the next license because we had so much data in our files, they literally couldn't load them. But you know, Paul's, we've taken that kind of feedback back, and Paul's kind of tuned and honed our process so that generally this stuff just goes through nicely now. Because there's loads of limitations and rules and kind of keep outs, and you can't do this, you can't do that. You need to be wary of registration issues and all sorts of things to kind of hone to get a good result.
Yeah. So I tried to work around that, and then occasionally I'll hit a bit where I've got some gold where gold cannot go. Nico has designed this perfect circuit. It's got all decoupling and stuff going on, and I'll just have a big gold unicorn horn through it. And I'll turn to Nico and I'll say, "Hey, Nico, do you think you could just like nudge your circuit out the way a bit there?" And he'll do it. He's the best. He will change the actual layout of the board to cater to the art, which is
Damn right he will.
entirely the wrong way to do it. But oh my god,
The whole thing is art. That's just collaboration.
Yeah, totally. It matters.
So Larry asks, is that huge PCB extra thick so that it doesn't bend?
No, it's standard PCB thickness. FR4, which is what PCBs are normally made of, is incredibly tough stuff. You know, it's like a multi-layer fiberglass composite type thing. It's insanely strong. Good luck breaking it.
Have you tried really hard?
Not hard enough.
I've broken everything else, so probably yes.
Phil
Phil is
keeps
basically
chipping
cursed. We sent him
boards.
products to find out how they're going to fail first, because he'll do something to them.
And just say this row of LEDs is not working. We're saying, okay, how did you store it? And he says, in a rucksack with two other bare boards, rubbing against each other.
And a bag full of rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. Went to the beach, dragged it around, and now one of the LED rows has got a bit funny. Why is that?
Got my early EInk debug wiring as well.
Although we do need to find better buttons, don't we, Phil? We
do need to find better buttons, yeah. There we go. I wanted to test running on a battery without running on a battery, so I just shimmed up a connector on one of our old tiny 2040 boards. Yeah. And soldering that is just not any fun at all, the debug header on the back there. So yeah, this tends to make a hash of things.
So you mentioned Bluetooth, the new Bluetooth capability, and that there's some support for it. Are there any other kind of Bluetooth, Pico W Bluetooth things in the works?
We've definitely talked about Kibo having Bluetooth support, because that makes loads of sense, right?
Yeah.
And probably something that Kibo's been missing because Bluetooth wasn't there. But I don't think we've got around to looking at the Bluetooth HID stuff yet, Phil.
Just starting to look into that.
You're on that right after this call, right?
I've been talking to Matthias, and he's quite excited about the idea of pairing USB game or HID gamepads over Bluetooth to Cosmic Unicorn, for example, and playing Snake or Tetris or something on it.
Yeah, like a game over Snake thing.
Yeah, that's what my son wants. He was like, "Oh, I heard it supports Bluetooth now. Can you get it to me to use a Bluetooth controller with it?" And I said, "I don't think it's ready yet in MicroPython. We need to use C, which we're not really good at. So right now, our controller for it is our planned controller for it is to use Microdot and to have you control it from a web browser, which has taught me about multi-threading, because I have to have one thread for the game and one thread for the server. But then I'm also getting into issues where I'm running out of RAM. So it's a fun challenge. You know, working with these things is a fun challenge. I didn't think I would, when the Pico came out, that I'd be worrying about running out of RAM on it, but it's
the things we're doing. The things we're doing with it are ridiculous. You know, a games console running HDMI and stuff. It's just stuff that it shouldn't be doing, but it does, because Eben is basically doesn't know no. He builds things because he wants to, because people say it shouldn't be done. And at the moment, the RAM is being an issue. But like John says, you can attach a PS RAM chip on there, and it runs at a fair old whack. It runs at a good speed where it could be useful RAM.
So I don't know if you guys are aware of the Pico DV demo board.
Yes.
It was like a design that was actually done by Raspberry Pi that they just put out there in the open. We said, well, can we make some? They said, fine, that's no problem. So we did. But it's quite big. We're actually working on another stick product at the moment. That's the one. So we're working on another stick product at the moment that is actually designed to be like a stick you plug into your TV. So like a Fire Stick or a Chromecast that is RP2040 powered. And that is interesting because we're putting two RP2040s on there. One purely to drive the display, and the other is like the application processor, so that you can run, say, Pico system games, or write your own applications, or download images from the internet, whatever. And the way that works is that each of the chips has a PS RAM chip with a frame buffer, and on VSync they swap. So we have an analog mux that basically swaps the chips between the two. So the application processor writes into the frame buffer in one RAM chip, and then when VSync occurs in the display, it hands that RAM chip over to the display processor, which hands its RAM chip back to the application processor, so that the display can be output to the screen. Which basically, normally when you're trying to write to a HDMI display from something like the RP2040, you're going to be consuming effectively all of the CPU that's available just to do the various bits of encoding that are needed. But this kind of trick means you've got an entire RP2040 spare to do the fun stuff on. So we're quite excited about that product. That one's coming reasonably soon, and it's quite an advanced product, but there's going to be some great demos for that. The fact you can just plug this thing in the back of your TV and then play Pico system games on it in itself is cool. And then Bluetooth comes into play because you can use like a Bluetooth game controller to control it. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what people do with this. I don't think we even really know what this product's for, apart from that Pico system example. But we have an inkling that people will come up with some really interesting stuff.
How's the Pico system ecosystem going? Like, are we seeing a lot of new games, a lot of new development?
I see quite a lot of interest in it on Twitter and stuff. Yeah, I don't really keep up with it that well, so I'm not sure. Phil will probably know better than me.
Discord is still churning over pretty well. We're getting new games on a semi-regular basis, updates to games. People really pushing the boundaries with. If you saw the 3D demo, I can't remember who created.
Oh, that was amazing, wasn't it?
That basically just did a whole 3D scene, including like an Outback Stables kind of thing. Like, I think it was trying to ape Wind Waker a little bit.
I mean, the interesting thing about this HDMI stick is, in theory, you could even use it to drive those kind of like information displays, train timetables, that kind of thing, because you've got a full frame buffer. The application processor has all the time in the world to draw. It can use Pico graphics, it can write with fonts, whatever, in between frames. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. We also have a way that you can then hook up a USB device to it as well, like a keyboard or a game controller that isn't Bluetooth powered. So that also opens up some options. I think Paul's quite interested in the idea of getting the MicroPython REPL running on the HDMI screen just with this stick plugged in. So there's no computer involved. There's nothing. It's almost like you picked up a ZX Spectrum because you just got a keyboard and this tiny stick, and it's an entirely self-contained computing device, right?
Yeah.
That reminds
literal physical double buffers on it. Literal double buffers. Love it.
Yeah.
Would you be able to save?
Well, it's got wireless. So you save in the cloud, or
got flash?
But if you're in the REPL, what I mean is, like, if you're in the REPL and that's your OS, and you want to create a Python script, are you able to save from the REPL?
Well, if we could do something like a import save to cloud module that you could then in theory just call .save or something on, and in theory, in principle, there's no reason you couldn't do that. Have some sort of shim that
you have to write a text editor in MicroPython and run it.
In fact, how much RAM? I think. Oh, actually, having mentioned that, I think this product. I think we're putting an SD card on it as well. Actually, so you can load and save to the SD card too.
Ah, useful.
Cool.
It's a bit of a weird one, but we kind of like the concept so much that we didn't concern ourselves too much with what it's useful for. We kind of just threw everything that sounded fun on it and just thought we'd see what happens. Because, my original interest was the Pico system on the TV. Paul's original list, kind of self-contained REPL, ZX Spectrum vibe, and Phil just screamed when we gave him the idea.
That's awesome. So we're almost out of time here. What are some of the things that you guys are most excited about going forward?
This stick product, this HDMI stick thing, I think is the most fun thing we've got going on at the moment. And I have to shout out to a guy called Mike Bell, who's been very instrumental in the software side. He came to visit us, and the stick was kind of the result of a few beers one evening. But he's also really into the idea, and he's been really working on some very interesting aspects to the graphics. So you can almost treat the second RP2040 as a bit like a GPU. You can send it commands and say overlay sprites and use this kind of blend mode. It's quite primitive because there's very little performance left on the CPU, but you can do some things that are quite interesting like that. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
Do you guys have a name for it yet?
Probably something like DV stick, because I think we can't use HDMI; it's trademarked. So yeah, maybe digital video stick or something like that.
Cool. And do you have a sense of when it's coming out?
Again, it's a few weeks. We don't yet have prototypes of that one. We've got like breadboard prototypes, but we don't have anything on PCB yet.
Yeah.
So it'll be
a few
while.
weeks. We're not saying which few weeks, but
Maybe by summer, something like that. It'll be in that ballpark, I suspect.
I look forward to the artwork on it. On the screen
Yeah,
printed on it.
it's going to be amazing. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Like
I mean, more than just a stick.
Like everything you guys do. So, folks, thanks so much to everyone for watching and listening. Definitely, you can get these products now, or I think a couple of them are coming tomorrow, right? At Pimoroni.com. And always exciting. Les is testing them now, but we can say with great authority that these EInk screens are awesome. I have 2 of them myself.
Paul is simulating the loading buffer.
So yeah. So we will be back next week at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK time with a very special guest, Ellie Weinstein, who makes from Cocoa Press, is going to be talking about her new chocolate printer. So,
Avram, before we go,
yeah,
a slight correction. It's 6 p.m. UK because America, the clocks go forward on the 12th. Is that right?
Spring forward, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We're 2 weeks behind in the UK.
We should all be on Swatch Internet time, and then we wouldn't have these problems. Anyway, I don't know what beat is, but we'll see you all then. Bye, everyone.